These East German women came out of nowhere. Their times dropped by dozens of seconds in less than a year.
There they go, Andrew with that great Garterberg.
When we saw the East German swimmers, it was so astonishing. You would have thought, in the first place, these are men.
Ja, da hieß es eben, der Klassenauftrag, du musst den Klassenfeind schlagen.
So the silver medals are piling up, but that's not what she wants. She wants a piece of gold.
I was being cheated. The thing was, no one else saw it. There were all these other adults around that did not see the difference. No one saw them.
The girls say, we trusted them. I trusted my coach. He was like my father.
There are real human beings involved behind this. This isn't just a story about statistics and medals and standings in the Olympic Games.
She was in there for a fight. They were in there for revenge.
You know, you always have the swim in you. It's just a matter of, are you going to let it come out?
We just finally, as a team, went, this is not how this is going to end.
It's all on her back. The whole team has been depending on Shirley Babashoff this entire
Who is she? The people on her postal route in Huntington Beach, California, know this woman well. But her public profile, which once burned white hot, is an ever-distant memory. Her name is Shirley Babashoff, and in another summer, she was at center stage of an Olympic story long untold, and still hard to fathom. The setting was Montreal, Canada, the Games of the 21st Olympiad, 1976. What was lost in the first draft of history was a disturbing and deeper narrative of tragedy and honesty. While a lethal conspiracy hid in plain sight, the chief rivals had a wall between them in the geography of a Cold War, when Germany and its capital, Berlin, was cut in half, split east and west, communist and capitalist. The final event was the women's 400-meter freestyle relay, July 25th, 1976. Before that night, the four members of the U.S. team had never swum together in a major international competition and would never do so again. Leading off, 19-year-old Kim Payton of Portland, Oregon. The second leg, 21-year-old Wendy Bolio of Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin. The other two racers, 15-year-old Jill Sturkle and the then 19-year-old Babashoff, had each flourished in Southern California's endless summers, fighting buried secrets, protected by a shattering silence. The four believed against reason that a final victory could unfold.
There they go.
So I remember that first race. I was only swimming against one other girl, and she knew the side breathing. And I would put my head down and swim, and I'd catch up to her. And then when I needed air, I just did the dog paddle. And I actually won that race, 125-yard lap. And I was hooked.
In a Southern California of surf cities, Vera Babashoff embraced the role of swim mom for her four children. Oldest Jack Jr., Shirley, younger brother Billy, and youngest sister Debbie. Such was the stew that would produce an uncompromising American original. A girl as brave, as brash, as competitive as the boys.
I had an older brother and a younger brother, and always competed with them, no matter what. Going through swimming, you just go to better teams, and you hear about a better coach, so we went to the Buena Park Dolphins. We had to go through tryouts, and the coach said, like, no, we'll take the boy, my older brother, but we don't want the girl, me. So my mom's like, nope, you gotta take the girl. Again, she wasn't gonna have me doing like ballet or something where she has to drive to swimming and ballet, or whatever. The coach went like, okay, we'll take the girl, because my older brother was so good, they just had to take me.
And now the swimmers have been called to their mark. 200-meter freestyle. In lane number 4, the fastest of the qualifiers, Shirley Babashoff. She's a 15-year-old. And it's a good start. They're in the final sprint. It's Babashoff, and Shirley's going to win it.
After the Olympic trials, I remember getting on the bus to go to training camp. I go, Mom, is this the Olympics that's on TV? And she was like, yeah, honey. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Fresh off a world record at the U.S. Olympic trials, 15-year-old Shirley Babashoff was the cover girl of Swimming World's 1972 Olympic preview issue. But at the Munich Games, the banner headline would be a new Olympic milestone, a record 7th gold medal by Indiana University's Mark Spitz. In comparison, Shirley Babashoff's 3-medal performance in Munich was little noted. But returning to Orange County, the future of American women's swimming was hailed as a hero.
I went to homeroom, and they called me into the office. And I go into the office, my mom was there, and I went like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I thought, did I forget my lunch? First, and then they go like, no, we have declared this Shirley Babashoff Day. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. They go, you're gonna go out and make a speech to the whole student body. And I go, well, Munich was really clean. I think that's the only thing I said. So, that was Shirley Babashoff Day at school.
East Germany also had its own rising young star. At the same Munich Olympics, Cornelia Ender was the youngest swimmer to make the awards podium. Just 13 years old, she earned 3 silver medals.
Ja, das Album, das ist schon uralt, hat das der Papa mir noch geschenkt, weil da sind halt immer mal Bilder, auch andere Bilder drin von anderen Zeiten. Das ist ja wirklich sensationell, wenn du die Bilder siehst. So klein, so süß. Mein Papa hatte eine relativ hohe Stellung, der war Oberst der Armee und wurde durch sein Versetzen dort in Bitterfeld, wurde der Wehrkreiskommandoleiter, also praktisch der oberste Chef von der Armee in Bitterfeld.
Like her officer father, Ender too was asked to serve the state. At age 10, handpicked for athletic potential, she left her home in Bitterfeld to live full-time at a nearby sports school for children, one of 25 such schools in East Germany. Another was in Karl-Marx-Stadt, where Eberhard Motis coached a legion of future stars, since enshrined on a wall of heroes.
Es war in der 4. Klasse, machten die Sportschulen Untersuchungen, wer sich für Sportarten eignet. Zum Beispiel im Schwimmen. Das spezifische Gewicht, da wird es in eine Fass gesteckt, wie viel du Wasser verdrängst und wie groß die Hände sind, wie groß die Füße sind. Wie beim Matthäus, den Ringenschwimmer, was so der Gegner von den Mark Spitz war, der hatte schöne große Hände, der hatte große Füße, die haben ja, wenn wir die Flossen dran haben, so groß.
In the 60s, East Germany mobilized its entire society to maximize sports success. The best of the best, such as Ender, would qualify for the annual Spartakiada, an in-country children's Olympics, used to season more than 10,000 prospects for high-pressure competition. Andrew Strenk, a 1968 U.S. swim Olympian fluent in German, studied for his history doctorate in Germany from 1972 to 1975. He was given a rare glimpse behind the Iron Curtain.
So they're not producing anything that anybody wants economically. They're not producing ballet dancers. They're not producing cosmonauts like the Soviet Union is. The only thing that they're producing that people want is what? Great athletes.
As East Germany's central government and scientific community made sporting success a chief priority, the decentralized American way relied often on coaching charisma. California's Mission Viejo Nadadores were headed by an intense young Ohio native and former Kentucky swimmer, Mark Schubert.
He was this little guy. Well, he's not that little, but this guy was always yelling, always walking up and down the pool deck, just like very into what he was doing.
Well, Shirley Babashoff has been the hardest working swimmer that I've ever coached, and I think certainly the most dedicated, and I think we can attribute her success to that dedication.
Well, I usually do about 10 miles a day in 2 workouts.
Her work ethic was, in my mind, absolutely better than anybody else's, better than anybody I've ever coached. She loved to come to practice. She loved to work hard. She loved to beat people.
I am swimmers to go 5 of their weak stroke, 5 of their second weakest stroke. Okay. Shirley, I want you to go 5 of them 5.
I mean, I was driving to Mission Viejo at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then coming home, going to school, and sometimes I would even practice with my high school team, and then get out of the pool, and then go drive down there and do another 15,000 meters. It was just what I did, I guess. It was just, I got up in the morning and went to the pool, and there was my family. That was my family.
But the Schubert formula, in its intensity, sophistication, and prime location, would be a mecca without equal. In the early 70s, women's sports in America were woefully underfunded and decidedly uncool. Karen Kraus, a successful age group swimmer in Santa Clara, California, is a sports writer for the New York Times.
It still wasn't really accepted to be athletic and female. It sounds so ridiculous now, but you cannot underestimate what appearances meant in the 70s. Farrah Fawcett was the huge icon. I can remember every boy in my neighborhood having the poster of her in that red swimsuit. That was seen as the feminine ideal of beauty. It definitely was not muscles and broad shoulders. That was definitely not in.
At the time, I remember training in the USC Dungeon, the swimming pool that was indoors with the gargoyles in the corner. We call it the Dungeon. We would train in 7 of the 8 lanes, and in the far outside lane, there would be one girl swimming laps by herself with a coach and a stopwatch.
In this haphazard era, Kim Payton, Wendy Bolio, Jill Sturkle, and Shirley Babashoff would somehow, suddenly and seamlessly, blend into a tenacious team. All were toughened by winding Olympic journeys that began anyhow, anywhere. In Portland, Oregon, the 3 Payton girls, Kelly, Debbie, and Kim, always packed rain gear when biking to swim practice at the David Douglas Pool. The burning intensity of middle child Kim would confound librarian mom, Barb.
I can remember one time driving to Seattle for a meet, and the 3 girls were kind of dozing in the back seat, and we were in the front, and all of a sudden, after like an hour of silence, Kim says, "Oh, I just love going to swim meets."
In summer, in order to train at the longer Olympic distance of 50 meters, the club tolerated a chilly, murky duck pond.
I remember Kim saying this to me, "How long is it going to hurt after you're done? It goes away." And that one thing stuck with me with Kim. And I say that to people today, you know. Yeah, it's going to hurt, but you're going to get out of the water and you're going to be okay.
Wendy Bolio emerged from a larger sports family and an even frostier starting point. While braving minus 30-degree mornings, a tribe of 7 kids swarmed a tiny indoor hotel pool in tiny Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin.
My mother was lifeguarding at this pool, so we could use that pool. My father was an electrical engineer there, so, I mean, they looked at that little 17-yard long pool and went, "Yeah, we're going to put our kids in swimming." We were all big. I mean, I'm the short one of the girls. My father had this great idea when I was about 10 and said, I think she needs some long-distance training. She needs like longer, not all these flip turns, because it took 7 laps in a 17-yard-long pool to make 100 yards. So in the summer, about a mile from our home, I trained in a lake with my little sister. And if you put your feet down, which is a great motivation, your feet were filled with bloodsuckers. So the motivation was lap after lap, however he did it, and just don't put your feet down.
Mother Mary was already in a league of her own. Before her marriage, a barnstorming semi-pro softball player in the 40s. In the pool, she taught her tribe textbook stroke techniques and encouraged pie-in-the-sky dreams.
I remember my mother always saying, someday they are going to have college scholarships for women. My mother was convinced of that. I mean, you have the opportunity to go to college and have somebody else pay for that. You could go to college and go on a swimming scholarship and swim because you love it, if that's what you want to do. She raised us girls that way.
In 1972, Beaulieu indeed secured a then rare athletic scholarship, swimming on the women's team at New Jersey's Monmouth College.
Lane 5, Shirley Babashoff of Golden West.
Meanwhile, in constant search for the highest level of competition, Shirley Babashoff became the only woman ever to swim on the men's team at Golden West Junior College in Huntington Beach.
My competition was boys. And I just told myself, you can beat the girls. Just try to beat the boys too. And if you beat the boys, of course you're gonna beat the girls. I like that. I just liked competing higher.
She could demolish any of the male swimmers, including people that ended up being Olympians at certain times in practice, which everybody was pretty impressed with. One time she broke the world record in practice.
The biggest international competition in the world this month of September is taking place in Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Here on the banks of the Danube, swimmers and divers from 48 nations are participating in the first World Swimming and Diving Championships ever held anywhere.
The 1973 Belgrade World Championships would provide a first real look at the names to watch for the next Olympics, 1976, in Montreal. The U.S. women, arriving in Yugoslavia, would be seeking to maintain a steady tradition of unquestioned dominance. Just the year before, at the 1972 Munich Games, American women had won 8 of the 14 swim events. 18-year-old Marcia Mori from Decatur, Illinois, was a newcomer to this dynasty. As a high school senior, she was already a college swimmer on the men's team at local Millikan University.
Swimming, most people were in Southern California or on the East Coast. So with my promise, the only way I could have good competition was swimming with the men's college team.
In Belgrade, Mori carefully recorded her introduction to international competition.
Tuesday, September 4th, 1973, Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Woke up early, didn't sleep much. All I kept thinking was, here I am swimming for the United States, and I was scared to death. We marched out to the music played by a military band, and the place was jammed. These Germans were huge girls. It was unreal. I couldn't believe it. They really looked like boys.
We're changing, and we hear this, whoa, 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 like that. We just like screamed. We're like, these are co-ed locker rooms. We went around and we saw, oh, it's the East Germans. It was the East Germans.
Here they come. They start with the backstroke, then we'll have the breaststroke, butterfly, and freestyle.
In Belgrade, the first day of the women's competition concluded with the medley relay. Mori swam the second leg, the breaststroke.
I had a slow start, ended up in the water third. The East Germans were killing us. Renate Vogel wasn't really that big, but she was really good.
In a sport where races are often settled by fractions and fingertips, the East German margin of victory was surreal, nearly 9 seconds. It was the worst defeat ever of a U.S. relay team.
It was embarrassing. I remember watching tapes on TV. They were 10 body lengths ahead of us. And this was my first international exposure and first sight of these Germans. And so I think we were all stunned.
18-year-old Renate Vogel, a standout from the Karl-Marx-Stadt Club, crushed Maury and the field again in the 100-meter breaststroke and won a total of 3 golds. And though only 14, East Germany's Cornelia Ender grabbed 4 golds and would be named 1973 Swimmer of the Year. After failing to win even one event at the 1972 Munich Olympics, just a year later, the new Wundermachen of the DDR, the Deutschland Democratic Republic, GDR in English, took 10 of 14 races in Belgrade, breaking 7 world records.
In 1 year, these girls have gotten so much bigger and different looking than they had looked in Munich, because in Munich, I didn't notice them at all, to be honest with you. And now they're beating us in a 200-meter race by 25 meters. All of a sudden, in 1 year, they got that strong for some weird reason.
Democracy is not perfect, but we have never had to put a wall up to keep our people in.
Unknown to the Western world, the performances in Belgrade were early evidence of a vast pharmacological experiment on generations of young athletes. This conspiracy thrived in a police state of suffocating paranoia. 189,000 citizens acted as informants for the Ministry of State Security, the Stasi. The regime's iconic feature, the construction of the Berlin Wall, was a desperate measure. Before it was built in 1961, an estimated 3 million East Germans fled their failing society for the West, including the family of Brigitte Behrendonck.
One very important point was at home you were told, keep your mouth shut. When you left your home, went to school or into town, be very, very careful. Maybe this tells you something. You could not speak your mind.
Behrendonck qualified for the 1968 Olympics in the discus for her adopted nation, West Germany. While competing at those Mexico City Games, she witnessed a disturbing development.
They got so strong. A female thrower, for instance, the way she steps into the circle. With some women, I thought, it looks like a man.
In the months leading up to the 1968 Olympics, a highly secret East German doping report documented stunning results by a female shot putter. After a daily intake of anabolic steroids for only 11 weeks, soon-to-be Olympic gold medalist Margita Gemmell displayed a mind-boggling improvement. In a sport scaled by inches, her throw increased by 6 feet. East Germany's medical establishment quickly understood that by giving teenage girls steroids, they, in effect, became boys, crossing the gender spectrum. Unlike men, not just gaining an edge, but rather an exponential advantage. The drug administered to Gemmell was called oral turinabol, produced exclusively by East German pharmaceutical company Jenopharm. Attorney Rich Young is one of the chief authors of the World Anti-Doping Code.
Our body makes testosterone. We may all have different amounts. Women have a whole lot less than men. So when you start giving women oral turinabol or injections of nandrolone, which is another steroid, it activates their steroid receptor. Their muscles get big, they put on weight, and they also develop other androgenic characteristics that men have, like facial hair, like steroid acne, like clitoral hypertrophy, which I hate to be indelicate, but it causes the clitoris to grow into a type of penis.
In the early 70s, Behrendonck began loudly testifying to a chemical experiment on young adults, being conducted on the other side of the wall. Her chief ally was her microbiologist husband, Dr. Werner Franke.
I have to fight the abuse of science wherever I notice that. I have the obligation. For me, giving drugs that always bear a certain risk to healthy people for no real reason, no medically acceptable reason, that is criminal behavior.
Today, one of East Germany's first great swim stars owns a women's clothing boutique in the former West Germany. Three-time Belgrade world champion Renate Vogel has been called a traitor for speaking fully about the doping, such as how coaches like Eberhard Motis casually dispensed the small blue pills of oral Turinabol.
Und dann ging es los, dass der Trainer, bevor wir gestartet sind, mit dem Training kam der mit seiner großen Pillendose vorbei und hat Pillen verteilt. Also jeder hat dann die Hand aufgehalten und da hieß es immer, damit ihr keine Erkältung bekommt, es gibt Vitaminpillen. Und darunter waren natürlich dann auch andere Pillen. Die hat man dann meistens, hat einen dann der Trainer noch zur Seite genommen und hat gesagt, und die nimmst du jetzt in der ersten Woche 3-mal eine so und in gewissen Abständen immer und hat einen aber nicht gesagt, was es ist.
What you quite often read in the papers that are now in the archive, the girls say, we trusted them. I trusted my coach. He was like my father.
Was wir gemerkt haben oder was ich persönlich an mir gemerkt habe, dass ich plötzlich meine Kraft hat extrem zugenommen. Dass ich also wirklich Kräfte hatte, also gerade wenn wir einen Kraftraum hatten, was also früher ich gar nicht für möglich gehalten habe. Dann hat mich an mir selber eben auch festgestellt, dass die Stimme sich verändert hat, das Gesicht wurde breiter, der Hals, der Stirnnacken kam irgendwann.
One of the key players in this doping industrial complex was Dr. Lothar Kipke. Importantly, he was not only a scientist, but also a scam artist. Dr. Kipke won a spot on International Swimming's Medical Commission and preached an anti-doping message. He also got himself invited to America to lecture U.S. coaches on athletic performance, while conveniently avoiding the real secret to success, anabolic steroids.
If you dress him in a Santa Claus suit, you would have said, other than that his hair's not white, he's a perfect Santa Claus, because he had that kind of demeanor. That was the one side of him, but this other side of him was this really obsessed, unrepentant, fanatical communist.
Before competitions, Dr. Kipke would personally inject Vogel and East Germany's other top female swimmers with a needle full of the steroid booster Nandrolone.
Ich kannte ja den Dr. Kipke schon sehr lange, weil ich ja sehr, sehr jung, auch in die Nationalmannschaft, schon wie gesagt, vor in den 70er Jahren. Da musste schon extrem viel passieren, dass er gesagt hat, du kannst heute mal vom Training aussetzen. Als Arzt war er knallhart. Bei ihm war es nicht möglich zu sagen, ich will das nicht.
The doping of adolescents was done without notice, consent, or discussion, as Cornelia Ender's well-connected officer father discovered.
Es gab eine Diskussion mit meinem Trainer und meinem Papa und dem Dr. Kipke, dass ich im Prinzip, dass er gesagt hat, als er das wahrscheinlich irgendwo gehört hat, dass Doping gemacht wird an jungen Sportlern, dass mein Papa gesagt hat, wenn ihr das Kind dopt, nehme ich sie sofort von der Sportschule. Ich glaube nicht, dass mein Vater da Einfluss hatte auf irgendwelche Dinge, die in der Kinder- und Jugendsportschule gemacht wurden. Mein Papa musste das hinnehmen, obwohl ich ja eigentlich noch minderjährig war.
There was not a single exception. Because if there would be a person who did not take these drugs, they would not only be slower, not fast enough to qualify, but also they would already be seen as opponents.
In this new world order, Shirley Babashoff seemed to be the only swimmer on the planet capable of matching the East German Wundermachen. After the 1972 Munich Games, Babashoff won 4 world titles, broke 9 world records, and, At the 1975 World Championships in Cali, Colombia, her ability to max out her body to close a race was about to become legendary.
Babashoff coming off in third place, making a move on Cornelia Ender. Shirley Babashoff has a strong chance to win this race. It is Shirley Babashoff coming from off the pace. She has her measure now. They close in with 15 meters to go. Babashoff and Ender. Ender and Babashoff. Babashoff and Ender. Now it is Ender. They touch the board, says Shirley Babashoff has done it.
As the 1976 Montreal Olympics approached, East Germany's women continued to destroy the boundaries of performance. After the DDR's June Olympic trials, even Babashoff had been erased from a world record chart that was now exclusively DDR.
I had a point before the Olympic trials in Long Beach where I was in the paper almost daily. And it was always, the East Germans are doing this, and what do you think about this and this and this? And it was too much for me. It was just too much for me. And I said, like, you know what? I'm just gonna quit. So I quit. I quit swimming right before the Olympic trials, maybe like a day. And I went to the beach. You know, I'm gonna go to the beach. I'm gonna go to the beach. I'm quitting swimming. I told my mom, right? And then I came home from the beach, and Mark Schubert's car is in our driveway, and I'm like, uh-oh. I'm in trouble. But he said to me, he goes, I don't want you to be known as the girl who quit right before the Olympics. So I just went back to it. I mean, it was like I took a vacation for a day, you know? That's about it. It was no big deal.
Shirley Babashoff is the American record holder in the women's 400-meter freestyle. Until 2 weeks ago, she held the world record until the East Germans had their Olympic trials, and Barbara Krauser broke her record. Shirley, are you willing and ready to get back in there and try to regain your world record tonight?
I'm going to try to do my best.
And we've got a fair start.
The impetuous one-day vacation appeared to be the only rest Babashoff needed. At the Long Beach Olympic trials, she recorded one of the most remarkable performances in swimming history. Qualifying in multiple sprint and distance events, the variety was unheard of. Babashoff set American records in the 100, 200, and 400 freestyle and took back the world record in the 800.
If I can contrast the buildup, the hype going into the Olympics for me versus Shirley. Mark Spitz has just won 7 gold medals 4 years ago, and he was the yardstick by which all other Olympic medal winners will be measured. The question goes, who on this team can win the most number of medals? And Shirley Babashoff had won the right to represent the U.S. in 5 individual races and 2 relays. That adds up to 7. If there's going to be a Mark Spitz, it's got to be Shirley.
Well, I think the perception within the sport and then the perception within the media was very high hopes, a lot of expectation. I had begged her not to go on the cover of Sports Illustrated because at the time it was considered a very big jinx, but she did.
I was like, sure, I'll do a cover of a magazine or whatever. And then someone told me, oh, there's some kind of like there's a bad karma with doing that. And I was like, okay, whatever, you know, I'm doing it. This is the cover of the Sports Illustrated that I was on. And on the back, an advertisement for cigarettes. Remember those days? Sports Illustrated, Doral.
When the women's Olympic team began their training camp at West Point, baffled Olympians were ordered to slim, fast.
When we got to West Point, we were weighed every day. I have a photo of it, of the team manager recording everyone's weight. And I think the implication was it was better not to look like an East German, so everyone will know we are female athletes. I lost, I think, 6-7 pounds between the trials and the Olympic Games, and there was no point to that. But I became concerned every time we had to leave practice and go weigh ourselves. It was a sign of weakness if we were gaining weight.
The atmosphere was also jarring for 15-year-old Jill Sturkel of Hacienda Heights, California. Sturkel was the imposing sporty girl in her neighborhood, forever outdoors, and fully encouraged by Mother Joanne, a competitive swimmer. and her father, Jim, a 6'7" center on USC's basketball team.
When I hear, West Point and training camp, all I think about is rules. There was a rule for everything. The one thing I remember is we were going somewhere and you weren't allowed to wear jeans. As a 15-year-old, I didn't wear dresses. That was the only thing in my suitcase. So I picked out my nicest pair of jeans to wear, and I got in trouble for wearing jeans.
Based on their swims at the Long Beach trials, the 4x100-meter freestyle relay team would be Oregon's Kim Payton, Wisconsin's Wendy Bolio, and the Californians Babashoff and Sturkle. It was a team born late that had to bond instantly with little in common. Bolio was a 21-year-old married college graduate. The 15-year-old Sturkle had just finished her freshman year in high school. The two 19-year-olds, Payton and Babashoff, were friendly, but also longtime rivals. During an exhibition meet at West Point, the youngest, Sturkle, gave clear notice of her precocious speed, becoming the first woman to ever break 50 seconds in the 100-yard freestyle.
As I recall, I'm completely naive about anything outside of the U.S. I heard about the East Germans in training camp, but my attitude, and again, I'm 15, so it's just like, bring it on, we will take them down. That was the I was a kid. I was like, nobody's coming in my backyard and gonna beat me, and it was confidence.
I declare open the Olympic Games of 1976. Celebrating the 21st Olympiad of the modern era.
The Olympics are underway.
To march in with the 120 nations into that stadium is unforgettable. It was the best moment of my life.
The athletes of the world parading into the Olympic Stadium in Montreal.
Marching in and seeing my teammates. You saw Bruce Jenner. People that you just read about in SI. That was a pretty proud moment. We're part of something pretty great.
After the Mark Spitz Medal Festival 4 years earlier, the American public awaited more swimming glory in Montreal.
The Americans are here.
As if to heighten such expectations, Gary Hall, 3-time U.S. Swim Olympian, was chosen by his fellow athletes to lead the delegation.
He won a silver in the 200-meter butterfly at Munich.
The patriotism, the celebration of all that's good in sport. And Gary Hall was out there in the front with the flag. Hasn't happened since. He's still the only swimmer ever to be so honored.
While Shirley Babashoff uncomfortably endured the spotlight, perceived as the lone hope against the East German machine, the U.S. men's swim team was not only deep, but confident.
I remember our coach, Doc Councilman, he says, in 13 races, I want the men in this room to win them all. I want the American swimmers here to win more medals than the rest of the U.S. Olympic team, all other sports combined.
East Germany.
Cornelia Ender and East Germany swimmers were absent at the ceremony, ordered to rest with the start of competition the next day. The overachieving DDR, the Deutschland Democratic Republic, was the size of Virginia, only 17 million people. And they came to Canada not for the party, but to show their might.
They see sports as a political weapon, and they see their athletes as diplomats in tracksuits. All is fair in love and war. Whatever you can do to win, that's justified because it's serving the national interest. It's promoting the country. Shirley Babashoff is not a pawn of the U.S. State Department. Cornelia Ender is a representative of a whole totally different sports tradition. And at the 76 Olympic Games, these two traditions meet head on.
Today was the first beginning of the big shootout in swimming. Shirley Babashoff of the United States and Cornelia Ender of East Germany. Ender, of course, has become a cloud on the horizon for every swimmer in the world, except for Shirley Babashoff, the 19-year-old of Fountain Valley, California. And here is Donna Deverona spending a moment with Shirley Babashoff.
And there goes the phone. See who it is. Yeah, hi, Mom. Fine.
Racing in events from 100 to 800 meters, plus both relays, Shirley Babashoff was arguably confronting a wider range of physical demands than any other swimmer, male or female, in Olympic history.
You anxious about Cornelia Ender? Now she's bowed out of the 100-meter backstroke and will only swim 5 events as compared to your 7.
Oh, well, that just goes to show you who's tougher.
Up close and personal, Babashov's chief rival was portrayed as a self-assured patriot, at ease delivering talking points.
Man so von anderen Ländern hört, gerade im kapitalistischen Land, wo die Sportler nicht so unterstützt werden wie bei uns, dass sie eben alles freikriegen, der Schulbesuch und das Training.
Ich meine, wenn wir zu solchen Wettkämpfen gefahren sind, dann gab es vorher eine Einschulung, da gab es eine Schulung, wie du dich verhalten musst bei so einem Wettkampf. Dass du den Leuten aus dem Wege gehen musst. Das war deine eigene Leistung, war wichtig. Ja, da hieß es eben, der Klassenauftrag, du musst den Klassenfeind schlagen.
The women's swim meet would be bookended by 2 relays. The 4x100 free as the last gold, the 4x100 meter medley as the first. In the medley, East Germany featured the world record holder in each stroke: backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, and freestyle. Swimming the freestyle anchor legs were Ender and Babashov, the first Montreal meeting of these heavily hyped rivals.
The East Germans miles ahead of everybody else, going for a world record.
Preceding Babashov, in the third leg, was butterflyer Camille Wright out of a club in Louisville, Kentucky.
That is ahead of the world record. The world record time was 2:17.
But even before Wright dove into the water, the East German lead seemed insurmountable.
Has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strokes before anybody else even got to the wall. Well, there's no doubt about it. Going into the race, everybody's...
I just remember thinking, how are we going to ever be able to even get close?
It's really fighting it out with Babashov. Canada's going to get the bronze. Ender is in. It's a world record, 4:07.95. Unbelievable.
The margin was gigantic, 6 seconds. But the U.S. silver in the medley was still historic, an American record.
That was the scary part. With it being the first event, I just remember thinking, oh man, how are we going to be able to compete against them?
Kim Payton, like her American peers, fashioned her destiny by self-sufficiency. Before the Montreal Games, Payton deferred admission to Stanford, kept her job at a Mexican restaurant, and trusted the tougher training environment at her club team, David Douglas. In Montreal, the plan seemed to be working. In qualifying for the 100-meter freestyle final, Payton broke the American record. 2 other Americans would join Payton in the final, the 15-year-old revelation at West Point, Jill Sturkle, and, predictably, Babashov.
Right now, it is Babashov struggling in 3rd place. In 2nd place, it is Petra Premier of East Germany. So it is Ender and Premier as they turn at the end of 50.
27.18 off the world record pace.
Trying to reach in and get a medal. It is Ender first. It is Premier second and Brigitte third. It is Kim Payton sprinting to get 4th. And Shirley Babashov finishes 5th. And Cornelia Ender, delighted with her performance, and why in the world wouldn't she be?
Ender, the first woman to break 58 seconds in the event, then 57, then 56, had lowered the 100 free world record for the 9th time. Payton, though 4th, had again broken the American record.
I'm watching Kim Payton, Shirley Babashov, Jill Sturkle, the very first night of 100-meter freestyle, take 4th, 5th, and 7th place, and not by a 1/10 of a second or a 1,000th of a second, but by a full body length. And I'm watching that. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me.
With no U.S. swimmer on the medal podium, a new cloud emerged. Payton, Babashov, and Sturkle were 3/4 of the U.S. team for the meet's other relay, the 4x100-meter freestyle. But, as the Montreal race made clear, East Germany would be answering in that event with the fastest 2 sprinters in the world.
Cornelia Ender, 5'9", 170 pounds. So it wasn't a 5 or 10 pound gap there. I mean, she was a very big broad girl. And I'm a pretty big girl, as you can see. What was striking about the East German team was they all looked like that. I mean, you look at our American women's swimming team, and all 21 of us had a totally different body type. You'd go, yeah, right? East Germany, every single one of them looked the same.
You cannot tell the story of Shirley and the other Americans in Montreal without telling the story of the U.S. men and the success they were having.
Was even more disappointing, discouraging, and in essence humiliating to the women that the American men were winning every event.
In Montreal, USC's John Naber was attempting to certify a power shift in the backstroke.
My idol is Roland Matthes, an East German, the leader of the East German team. And he has won gold in 68 and in 72. You can't fluster him. He's charming. He's Omar Sharif handsome. He walks onto the pool deck and everybody just makes room for the guy.
2 years before, at a dual meet in Concord, California, Naber had secured a breakthrough, delivering Matthes his first defeat in 7 years. At the Montreal Games, Matthes learned conclusively he was no longer the king.
John Naber has almost a full body length lead over Matthes, a half a body over Rocca. It's Americans 1-2. It is John Naber. It is Peter Rocca. And it is Roland Matthes third.
I was so proud to have him compliment me on breaking his world record. The only English words I've ever heard him say, very fast.
East Germany's men were also using anabolic steroids, but as results would indicate, to little effect. The backstroke bronze by Matthes would be the only swimming medal by an East German male in Montreal. For American stars Babashoff and Naber, the contrast was stark. Unlike Babashoff, Naber's competition wasn't fundamentally compromised by doping. Further, he was superbly prepared in ways Babashoff was not, by fierce NCAA competition and by a media-savvy, big-city men's sports program at USC.
And everybody got behind him right away. He just kind of glowed. And I do remember my line I wrote, because I don't know why, it just stuck in my head. With a smile on his face for the whole human race, comment John Naber's sauntered out of the pool.
As Naber personified American pride, the charming 25-year-old Matthes provided distracting tabloid fodder, the announcement of his engagement to the 17-year-old Ender. The press speculated, incorrectly and stereotypically, that the East German state had forced this merger of genetic wonders to produce future champions. In truth, it was a simpler, typical tale. Defiant daughter meets perceived ladies' man.
Und dann aber, als wir uns näher kamen, kurz vor den Olympischen Spielen 1976, waren meine Eltern eigentlich von Anfang an dagegen, mit der Beziehung oder die Beziehung einzugehen, weil sie A, glaubten, es behindert meine Vorhaben für Montreal, und zum anderen, weil Roland halt sehr unbeständig in Liebeleien war. Das wussten meine Eltern und haben gesagt, dass das halt für mich nicht der Richtige wäre, um...
At her athletic peak, Cornelia Ender was sitting on a bombshell. She had resolved to quit right after the Montreal Olympics. But some of her star teammates never even made it to the games. After the start of doping at age 12 or 13, innocence often soured into suspicion and fear. At age 20, Renate Vogel, the world's top breaststroker, quit the sport with joint pain.
Ich habe ja gesehen, wie es bei mir im Sportclub zuging. Wie gesagt, das Doping hat sich auch nach vorne geschoben. Wer weiß, was gesundheitlich mit dir noch passiert wäre. Ich wollte ein normales Leben haben. Ich wollte eine Familie gründen. Ich wollte Kinder haben. Ich wollte studieren. Und 76 war es. Und es waren die jüngeren Schwimmer, es war eine andere Generation, die dort am Start war.
The curious swimming depth of small East Germany also went unnoticed. Very fast champion swimmers were routinely being replaced by younger, even faster versions. Andrea Eifer, one of East Germany's top sprinters in 1973 and 1974, was, like Vogel, also among the missing in Montreal. Andrew Strenk, during his time studying in Europe, had a heart-to-heart conversation with Eifer and her teammates at a Czechoslovakian hotel.
You know, I remember Andi Eifer telling me, you know, it's easy for you, you're from the West. In your system, you can step out and you can step away. You can say, I don't want to play this game anymore. They didn't know what they were being given. But they knew that they were guinea pigs and that they were being tampered. I mean, they had all the extra facial hair, the voices got deeper. They noticed a lot of the side effects, and some of them were more impacted than others, but they felt very trapped. She said, if you were in my situation, what would you do? If you knew that, to say, oh, I'm not going to take these supplements, could you do that if you knew you were going to essentially become a non-person for the rest of your life? You'd never have a job. You couldn't get an education. You know, and I'm kind of almost crying right now because I remember the time she was crying. She said, it's easy for you to pass judgment on us, but unless you're in our situation, it's really hard to understand the kind of pressures that we're under.
You just seem so confident that the idea of losing a race doesn't really enter your mind much.
Well, it really shouldn't. Someone told me before that winners think about what they want to happen and losers think about what they don't want to happen to them.
And Donna De Verona, it would be my feeling that this is one of Shirley Babashov's best events at 400 meters.
She feels like she owns it.
In the 400 freestyle, it appeared Babashov had reason to be confident. East Germany's Barbara Kraus, only 6 weeks after shattering Babashov's world record, was reportedly ill. Explanations abounded: tonsillitis, throat inflammation, and angina.
Barbara Kraus is not here. The world record holder was sick and did not make the trip to the Olympics.
Sie war krank. Das war unsere Information. Sie war krank.
East Germany's next best in the event was 15-year-old Petra Tümer, another younger, faster prodigy charting a rapid rise.
Heute ist natürlich sicherlich ganz anderer Grund. Bei ihr wird man, ich vermute den, das ist, was im Nachhinein noch bei mir dann gesagt worden ist, dass sie wahrscheinlich irgendwelche Werte hatte, die in Richtung Doping gingen.
Kraus's absence was likely connected to a new development. At the Montreal Games, for the first time, the International Olympic Committee was testing for anabolic steroids. In response, East Germany opened a secret in-country doping lab to ensure that athletes who pre-tested positive stayed home. Significantly, no East German athlete would ever fail a drug test at a major international competition.
There she is, Shirley Babashov from Fountain Valley, California, 19 years of age.
Babashov still had 5 events left. Winning 3, even 4 golds still seemed possible.
And swimming in lane number 7 is one you want to watch. Petra Tümer of East Germany, 15 years of age. She'll also swim the 800 free.
Also ich wusste ja, wer Shirley Babashoff war. Sie kannte mich zwar auch, aber ich denke, sie hat vielleicht nicht so damit gerechnet mit mir.
Well, we've We've got a fair start, and it is a reasonably good start by Babashoff.
Shirley won most of her races by coming back very strongly in the second half. It was her calling card.
Here we go into the final 50 meters. It is Shirley Babashoff and Petra Trumer.
Now she gets to Montreal, and how are the East German women beating her? By coming back on her in the second half, doing to her what she had been doing to her competition all these years.
As they come to the final 10 meters, it is Trumer of East Germany. Petra Trumer of East Germany is going to win it. Babashoff is second. The time for Petra Trumer, 4:09.89. They have destroyed the world record of 4:11.69. And Shirley Babashoff at 4:10.46 also broke the world record.
Mir tut's leid, also ich muss heute sagen, ich kann ihre Enttäuschung verstehen damals. Sie hat mir auch nicht gratuliert dann nach dem Wettkampf, weil sie einfach tief enttäuscht war, dass sie das nicht gewonnen hat, als haushohe Favoritin. Aber das ist der Sport.
Your reaction after the races, she said, well, she didn't congratulate me. She made a point of it.
But I didn't lose. I didn't lose that race. I was cheated. Big difference. Yeah, big difference. I would have, if I lost a race, I'd always congratulate the person who beat me, but not if I'm cheated.
Und ich habe 1978 dann das erste Mal erfahren, dass es bei uns sowas gibt und dass ich mit betroffen war. Und da war bei mir auch so ein bisschen dieses Ganze, was ich bis dahin, diese Euphorie, die ich bis dahin für das Schwimmen besessen habe, die war damals weg. Also ich habe weitergemacht und es hat sicherlich auch dann Tabletten gegeben, die ich teilweise auch ins Schwimmbecken gespuckt habe, weil ich einfach der Meinung war, ich wusste nicht, was richtig, was falsch ist. Man wollte Erfolg haben.
Today, Shirley Babashoff swam the 400 freestyle. That was her favorite event and her best chance to win the gold medal. She came in second to an East German. They both were well under the world record. Shirley was heartbroken. She had dreamed of the gold. She received her medal, but could not look up due to the tears rolling down her face. Here was someone who bettered the world record and was receiving a silver medal, yet crying. I could understand she had prepared herself for winning, and anything less was a total failure. Everyone in the apartment at the Olympic Village said they were leaving, so they wouldn't have to face Shirley when she came back in. You never know what to say, what a person's reaction will be. I went to bed. I didn't want to face her either.
The year before Montreal, 1975, Wendy Lonsbach retired from swimming and married fellow Monmouth teammate Bernie Beaulieu. At the time, married 21-year-old women would typically surrender their Olympic aspirations. But when her husband took a coaching job at Central Jersey Aquatics, the Mission Viejo of the East Coast, Beaulieu met her own version of Mark Schubert, Bill Palmer, who pushed her back into the pool, adding weight training and crushing practices to a textbook butterfly stroke.
The women's 100-meter butterfly finals, the world record, 1:00.13, Cornelia Ender, East Germany. Camille Wright, 21 years of age. She took a silver medal in the 4x100 medley. She swims for the Louisville Tarpon. United States third swimmer in this event is Wendy Beaulieu. And we've got a fair start, and plummeting off the block in lane number 4.
Gun goes off, and down they go for the first 15. And they immediately flash up, your split times. And I knew she was right on where she needed to be. I mean, she was clearly going to break an American record.
In lane number 6, Wendy Beaulieu is hanging with them. Wendy Beaulieu is in that fight for that silver medal. She won't get the gold, but she's fighting Pollock for silver. It is Ender. Here comes the time, 58, 59. She didn't quite get a minute.
For the nearsighted Beaulieu, the results were truly a blur.
I finished, but I couldn't see, I turned around, I couldn't see the board. So I'm kind of going, God, and people are like screaming, but I knew I didn't win. I knew that. So I get out of the pool and I ask the attendant there, how did I do? And she goes, honey, you got third. And I went, I did. And I was just ecstatic.
I couldn't have been prouder. Could not have been prouder. It was just an amazing, amazing moment. Yes.
After I won my 100 fly, we had the press conference, and first thing out of their mouths was, well, how does it feel? You won a bronze medal. I remember feeling very attacked that I won a bronze medal, that I'm just not that good.
Not only had Beaulieu broken the American record, she had swum the fastest ever 100 fly without doping.
Here is an amazing situation. Cornelia Ender, having won that gold medal, her third of the games, is going to come back, according to the schedule, in 18 minutes and swim another race. Not only swim it, but swim against her great rival, Shirley Babashoff, in the 200-meter freestyle.
After defeating Ender in the 200 free a year before, at the 1975 World Championships, Babashoff had reason to believe that her fourth race in Montreal might conclude with her first gold.
All in position. Starter being very careful here, trying to avoid the false start, and we've got a fair start. And off the blocks in lane number 3, immediately as she has done in every race, it is Cornelia Ender. It is Babashoff in first place at 100.
59.27. Now if Babashoff can bring it home like she's used to, this is how she beat Ender in Cali, Columbia, but she was a little bit further behind.
Now it is obviously and solidly a fight between Ender and Babashoff.
But as the race entered the final 50 meters, Ender's now blistering pace dusted the field.
A crowd in 10,000 people standing and screaming. It is Cornelia Ender pulling away with 10 meters to go. It's Cornelia Ender. The world record for this one is 1:59.78. Let's count it off. It is Ender leading easily. 56, 57, 58, 59, 26. It is a new world record and the fourth gold medal for Cornelia Ender of East Germany. She has won 2 gold medals within a half an hour.
I think in the 200 I might have went out too hard, and it kind of like blew my mental fight a little bit. And I think that probably hurt me the most is I don't know if I was like caving into it too or what, but at the time I did the best I could.
So the silver medals are piling up, but that's not what she wants. She wants a piece of gold.
I think that race was really the tipping point we were all furious with, because I think we felt that Shirley should have won that race, could have won that race, and Ender won the race, you know, with dubious means.
So the gold medal goes to Cornelia Ender again. That's 4 for her and another new world record.
No female swimmer had ever won 4 golds in one Olympic Games. Swimming World magazine, the Bible of the sport, would call Cornelia Ender's 2 record-breaking swims perhaps the greatest individual accomplishment in the 80-year history of the modern Olympic Games.
Get thrown into the room with like all these reporters, and they asked me this. One guy asked me, he said, "Oh, well, how do you feel about getting a silver medal again?" And I looked at him, I go, "How many silver medals do you have?" And it was like, oh, everybody's writing down, you know, like, it's just, oh, here she is again, Shirley, you know, bad sport.
Under a column headlined, "Some Ugly Americans in Swimsuits," Newsday's Joe Gergen would characterize the American women's team as spoiled, dishonorable, sneering, and snickering. Princesses who were mocking the Olympic spirit with innuendo and sour grapes.
Someone had asked Babashoff about the frustration of all her Olympic experience. She said, "Did you ever make an Olympics?" And she said it in a kind of a snotty kind of way. Spoiled was the only word I could think of. They reacted totally insensitive to anybody else other than themselves. They seemed like they sneered at the winners. There was no grace at all. This was not the spirit of the Olympics, put it that way.
I was 19 then, so I knew everything, you know. I was at the age where I had been to the Olympics and 4 years of all this competition, and I was a completely different person from 15 to 19. So I said what I felt, and apparently it didn't go over very well.
She just said what everybody else was thinking, said what was in her heart, expressed her disappointment. It came across as sour grapes, but today we, see that she was right, and, her statements were correct, but it came across as sour grapes.
Reacting to the widespread public criticism of her daughter, Vera Babashoff felt an obligation to send a letter to the editor of the Los Angeles Times. Mrs. Babashoff wrote of a daughter who awakened daily at 4:45, put her teen social life on hold, never earned a penny, and wasn't trained for tricky questions by the press.
There was clear that something was not right, but people just looked at it at face value. People didn't even look at the Times, because if they had looked at the Times, they would have seen it wasn't as if Shirley was going slow. In many cases, she was going her best times, but because it wasn't resulting in the gold medal, people were asking, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you winning? And in questioning it, she got labeled Surly Shirley by the American sports writers, who thought she's showing poor sportsmanship. And it really, that Surly Shirley label dogged her for a very long time, when really all she was doing was stating the obvious.
Still seeking even one gold, Babashoff had 3 races left: the 400-meter individual medley, the 800-meter freestyle, and the last relay, the 4x100-meter free. Clearly outmuscled by the East German machine, Babashoff's coach Mark Schubert advised her to drop an event, the 400-meter individual medley. The top East German entry was another standout from Karl-Marx-Stadt, the 18-year-old reigning world champion, Ulrike Tauber.
They are just absolutely wild. Ulrike Tauber is going to win this race, but just listen to this crowd as they're cheering on Cheryl Gibson of Canada.
The crowd of 10,000 erupted. But the roar wasn't for Tauber's crushing world record performance. 50 feet behind, home team Canada was cruising to silver and bronze.
And there is the crowd going crazy.
How Tauber swam 6 seconds under the world record was not fully understood then, but is now.
Aber in trainingsintensiven Phasen, wo also eine schnelle Rekonvaleszenz gefordert war, wo man sich also schnell erholen musste, um wieder eine körperliche Belastung trainieren zu können, sind diese Substanzen natürlich zum Einsatz gekommen. Sicherlich relativiert das den Olympiasieg, das gebe ich ganz ehrlich zu. Aber auf der anderen Seite, wer garantiert mir, dass das in den anderen Ländern nicht auch so gewesen ist? Wer garantiert mir, dass es wirklich nur die DDR gewesen ist?
As the East German women were pounding their competition, the American men continued their uninterrupted dominance, cruising to victory in 12 of 13 events. The headliner of a stellar U.S. team was John Neighbor. 5 medals, 4 golds, 4 world records. Meanwhile, the U.S. women seemed to be heading backward, failing to even reach the gold medal final in 3 different events, something that hadn't happened even once to any American swim team in 24 years.
The men were so supportive, trying to cheer us on, but, by that time we were already, whoa, this is not good.
I was so far off my best times that I couldn't forgive myself. I tried to ignore the disappointment, but it took a big toll on me. I became anorexic soon after the Olympics and went from about a 150-pound swimmer down to a 105-pound, 5'9" skeleton. Everyone on that team, it's your life. The sacrifice your families have given, the honor of representing your country, it was everything. And with the unfairness of the steroid poisoning, it turned into a devastating defeat.
The final individual event in the women's competition was the 800-meter freestyle. Babashoff, the world record holder, faced the 15-year-old Toomer once again.
Well, the pre-race strategy was to take it out with her competition and then to beat her on the second 400.
Shirley's giving it everything she has. What a two-girl race. Shirley Babashoff coming up to the East German. What a tremendous finish. Is she going to catch her? I guess she's not going to by a fraction. No, it is Toomer.
She couldn't break away, but she was tough enough to swim with her stroke for stroke.
Securing bronze, Wendy Weinberg joined Babashoff and Beaulieu as the only American women to win individual medals in Montreal. Notably, Babashoff's silver medal performance was 2 seconds faster than her world record swim only a month before at the Long Beach Trials.
Gerade bei der Petra Tümer Zürich hatten wir gar nicht damit gerechnet, dass sie gewinnt. Es war wirklich eine Sensation. Und das war natürlich für die Babashoff, verstehe ich, die war da voll drauf eingestellt, dass sie gewinnt. Da bricht eine Welt zusammen. Gut, der Zweite ist der erste Verlierer, aber ne, Silber zählt ja schon fast nicht mehr. Silbermedaillen.
It was Babashoff's fourth silver of the week. One of the officials at the 800-meter medal ceremony, in a cranberry jacket, was East Germany's lead swimming doctor, doping czar Lothar Kipka. Toomer's victory was his as well.
At the end of that week, we just finally, as a team, went, this is not how this is going to end.
The last race on the calendar was the women's 4x100-meter freestyle relay, July 25th, 8:30 p.m. Kim Payton, Wendy Beaulieu, Jill Sturkle, and Shirley Babashoff would form the U.S. team. Their collective preparation included an act of the imagination.
We got together before the relay, and we sat there and we did this like mental thing where you swim the race in your head over and over and see and picture where you are and the time you want to do. And we all of us were in there and we kept doing this swim over and over in our head. We're going like, okay, we're going to do this time. We're going to do this time. We're going to do this time. And we're just like, this is how we're going to win. This is how we're going to win. We're going to train our brains to make us win.
I distinctly remember, us picking out what we were going to wear when we won, and this is how we were going to win. You're going to do this. We've got you can do this. Yeah, I can do that. And so we kind of talked about whose splits would and what we thought we had to go to win. And I think it was just our own way of putting together confidence and a teamwork, a bonding that took place through different things that we were going to do when we won. We didn't talk about, not winning. It was like, we're going to go in, we're going to do this.
As these women resolved to do together what they could not do alone, in symphony, one of them would be further empowered by another emotional embrace.
My parents were not in Montreal to see me do the 100 fly. I never expected it. My father was just not well. And the day before the 4x100 freestyle relay, I walked across the street as I did that whole week in Montreal to meet Bernie. We had our process. We met, we had breakfast, his parents were there. We did it every day. I opened the door, I see his mom and dad. And there are my parents. That was a great day. That was a great day. My siblings all pitched in, bought an air ticket, and they were like, no, Dad, Mom, you can't miss this. She won a bronze already. You gotta go. For me, everything came into place at that time. Not that it wouldn't had they not been there, but it's the God, I wish everybody could have a day like that day.
At the Olympic pool for the women's 4x100-meter freestyle relay.
If I have to make a judgment, it'll be East Germany first and a fight for second place between Canada and the United States.
It's the last day of swimming and the last race, and American women had won no gold medals. On paper, Everything pointed to the East Germans continuing their dominance. But there was something in the attitude about the American women that changed. And I remember looking at Shirley, and there was a hint of a smile that I had not seen on the other events.
We knew what we had. By that time, it's too late to talk about it. We already talked about it. We already swam it in our head over and over and over.
And all the East Germans do is lead off with Cornelia Ender.
She's having such a great meet so far.
For some reason, Cornelia Ender's getting ready to jump on the starting blocks. And this caught us by surprise. You want to race your toughest competitor at the anchor leg when you need them the most. And we look down at the attitude of the American women, and it's almost as if the fly had landed on the spider trap.
Stars Ender and Babashoff would be on opposite ends of the relay. The East Germans, logically confident, were expecting Ender to open by demoralizing the competition. In the anchor spot, the Americans were trusting Babashoff's finishing grit, though she had logged more races, more meters than any other swimmer in the competition. The 15-year-old Jill Sturkel appeared naive to the pressures. The 21-year-old Bolio epitomized strength made smooth. And the challenge for 19-year-old leadoff swimmer Kim Payton was this: relentlessly shadow Ender, a swimmer who had come to seem superhuman.
Kim Payton got up on that block, gave us another glance over before she went down, and you just knew this gal was going to make a difference at this time.
There they go, and Ender with that great start of hers.
To nobody's surprise, Cornelia Ender takes off and leaves America falling back.
Ender of East Germany in the lead.
Kim stayed as close to Ender as anyone could ever stay, which is what her job was. You go out as fast as you can, don't you lose her. And she didn't. She swam unbelievably fast.
United States is second.
Wendy Bolio is one of the 3 American women to win medals here.
The thing about a relay is you are absolutely obligated to that person coming up. Kim had done it. It was my turn to do that. Because who was coming after me was Sturkel. I owed her that. I owed my team that.
United States in lane 3. East Germany lane 4. Canada lane 5. Holland in lane 6.
I just remember thinking, keep that stroke together, like my mother had taught me. High elbow, fingertips first. High elbow, fingertips first.
Every stroke came, I mean, you could just see that she was pulling back. Just absolutely, amazing.
Wendy Bolio has picked up on the East Germans. Jill Sturkel getting up, ready to go into the third 100 meters.
You always have the swim in you. It's just a matter of, are you going to let it come out?
East Germany touches and off they go.
Sturkel, she took off. Holy cow. I mean, I'm getting my glasses. I have to watch this.
I'm thinking I've got to have a great turn, and I have a great turn. I come off the wall, and I thought, holy cow.
Look at this. This guy in the lead. Here's an upset right now, the way it's going.
We're right there. We're in this. We can win it.
East Germany and the United States in the lead in lane 3.
I remember telling myself when my legs started hurting and I couldn't feel them, was just keep moving them up and down. And I'm focusing on the wall saying, I've got to get my hand there. I've got to get my hand there so Shirley can take us home.
I took off and I thought to myself, oh no, did I just leave too early? And I thought, don't even think about that right now, just go.
It's all on her back. The whole team has been depending on Shirley Babashoff this entire Olympics.
Shirley was tough. She wasn't going to give up. She had been disappointed, but she was in there for a fight. They were in there for revenge.
There's literally 3 years of frustration was coming out of her in the pool.
United States in the lead for the gold for the 4-time winner of the female relay.
But I still think about it to this day. It was the most exciting race of the meet, and I was in 5 of them.
Shirley Babashoff leads in front. Here's the drive to the finish. Babashoff hanging on, going for the wall. And Babashoff is the winner. The United States has upset East Germany. And Shirley Babashoff has finally acquired her first gold medal. And
the crowd on its feet. It's been one of the outstanding events. World records have been falling like October leaves here.
It was fun seeing Shirley smile. To this day, I can see Kim smile, and then we're all hugging each other.
Everyone went crazy. Everyone, it was just the neatest moment.
We were quite a team that night, and it was fun. It was absolutely fun.
And now the United States has upset the powerful East German team in the relay.
I have never been happier to eat my words than the prediction I made right before this event.
So here they are, the happiest freestyle relay team you've seen in a long time.
My parents were in the stands, and my dad was, had the handheld camcorder, and he says, I'll probably start crying over this, that my mom was hitting him. And my mom said, no, you just couldn't hold it straight, So I could just picture the two of them up there.
In addition to shattering the world record in the final relay by 4 seconds, the U.S. women overall also broke 15 American records in Montreal, more than any other U.S. women's Olympic team, before or since.
How long can you try for gold before you get it?
In a different world, a drug-free competition, the 1976 Montreal swimmers would have been judged, like their male counterparts, one of the greatest teams in Olympic history.
I think what happened to the East German women is horrible, and I don't want to see their medals taken away. I don't want to see them suffer any more than they've already suffered. It was a horrible suffering, and I am, I'm thankful, grateful that I'm an American athlete and I wasn't a victim of what they had to go through. I think the thing that people have to be able to wrap their head around is there needs to be compassion for this group of women who competed and did their best and were really treated horribly by the press, by just not recognizing what they did. It's hard because you can't go back. You've stolen something, the right to compete and see where you fall on an equal playing field is gone. And that's what sports is all about.
Underneath the wall of silence, seconds measure to me. Surface fractured by defiance, the distilling of a dream. As everyone's looking at her, with faith in all that she assumed. Every girl there is a mirror, in every mirror there is room. Only prepare for a moment, moments can be missed. Hear the crowd, they're unrelenting, eyes locked on a list. Every victor has a secret, stories buried yet untold. Every girl there is a mirror, a final victory unfolds. Divided by degrees and colors, always with something to prove. Gravity does not tread softly, always with something to lose. Paraded under pressure, staying strictly within lines. Tense and hiding behind texture, step ahead, falling behind. Only prepare for a moment, moments can be missed. Hear the crowd, they're unrelenting, eyes locked on a list. Every victor has a secret, contenders seek their prize. Every girl there is a mirror, in every mirror there are lies. tied together, separate parts of one machine. They wait and watch as seconds measure a distilling of a dream. Every victor has a secret, and with plans drenched in gold. In every girl there is a mirror, a final victory unfolds.